Jason again. So
we're good to start, Madam President.
okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I call to order the GCC Board Retreat on March the 8th, 2022. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here. Roll call. Mr. Mark Anderson.
Here.
Mr. Harry Block. I know Harry is present. Mr. Harry Block. He is here, but he's not answering. Mr. Bruce Mandrick. Is Mr. Mandrick on?
Not at this time.
Mr. Jack Turner.
Here.
Lily Campbell present. We will entertain a motion for SB 361 board resolution. And this board resolution simply states that we are following protocol for having our virtual board meetings, and that we are following the Brown Act regulations. And so we will have an SB 361 board resolution. I will need a motion to accept the.
I move the motion.
Move the motions. Thank you.
I second.
And
I
second.
second.
We have a motion and a second. All right, roll call. Any discussions concerning the resolution? Hearing none. Roll call. Mr. Mark Anderson.
Yes.
Mr. Block, Harry Block. We still do not have him. Bruce Mandrick. Jack Turner.
Yes.
Lily Campbell, yes, we do have a quorum. So the resolution passes. And now we will move into our board. And again, I want to thank everyone for being here today. I want to thank those who are watching us virtually and the cabinet who's with us and who spent so much time getting ready for this board retreat. Thank you, each of you, for your hard work and your dedication. And so with that, we will begin moving into our meeting. Public comments?
Jason Sample.
Yes, Madam President, we do have a few members of the public who have submitted comments.
All right, we shall entertain that at this point.
Okay. So our first public comment, sorry, we're getting this listed up here. All right, our first public comment comes from Violetta Pershtoshkin, which is a family member who wants to know, or excuse me, is commenting in terms of mask mandates for students within their child's elementary school. They're asking for the board to free their children and to allow them to breathe. That is that public comment.
I'm sorry, I did not get the last. Allow them to do what?
To breathe. And
breathe.
Again, I'm reading their words. So.
Okay.
Our next public comment is coming from Nadia Avramov. Dear GCC board members, I would like to thank you, first of all, for the work that you do for our kids, for our school employees. We appreciate your support and your hard work during the pandemic. I would like to address this comment specifically towards the newly proposed bill, SB 871 and SB 866. For those that don't know or did not have a chance to read about these bills, SB 871 will require all kids, including kindergartners, to require COVID-19 vaccine in order to attend school or daycare. It will remove personal or religious exemptions. SB 866 would authorize a minor 12 years or younger to consent to vaccines without parental consent. I would like to ask you why those two bills are being proposed in the first place, and we can clearly see that this is not to protect the public from the spread of the virus. Those that wanted to get the vaccine already did that, so why is our government targeting our kids now? There are a few facts that are now about the vaccines related to COVID. Number one, vaccines do not protect from the virus, meaning one can still get the virus even when vaccinated and also boosted. Two, vaccines do not protect from the spread of the virus, meaning one can spread the virus even after the vaccine and our booster is received. Three, there are known side effects from the virus that impact adults and kids. Some of those side effects are minor. However, some are very serious and can put a child's life in danger. The impacts of the COVID-19 vaccine are still being studied, and most of the data is not available to the public about its full impact on the human body. Additionally, we now have more than 2 years worth of data that clearly demonstrates that the impact of COVID on kids is extremely minimal. Hearing statements like better be safe than sorry or we are all in this together does not apply when we speak about the subject of immunizations for children. The parent goes on to express a number of statistics that they are sharing, and these statistics are neither verified nor provided by staff. The end of that comment. Our next comment is Natalia Chaboter, parent and guardian of a student, and regarding COVID vaccine. Hello, I would like to know if our school will require COVID shots for kids, if school will be forced to approve them, then I will take my kids out of school and take them where they won't require it. Thank you. Our next comment is from Svetlana Piantrusky. Pardon the pronunciation of the name. Hello, my son is currently enrolled in COA. This pandemic was hard on everyone, especially kids. While mask mandates are being lifted up, the COVID-19 vaccine is being pushed in for school kids. I myself had COVID 2 times. My son did not catch it or was asymptomatic to it. I know of kids who went through COVID and had it easy and they were perfectly fine in 2 to 3 days. Children have better immune systems and don't need the COVID vaccine. That in fact doesn't prevent from catching COVID, doesn't guarantee that it will help create mild symptoms. In fact, I have coworkers who live a healthier lifestyle than I and had the COVID vaccine, and their COVID was a nightmare. So why push something that will make our kids more sick? I oppose COVID-19 vaccine to be a requirement in our schools and hope the school board will make the right decision in preventing this to happen to our children that are perfectly immune to the virus. End of comment. The next comment comes from Anastasia Kolvanchuk. I am writing and asking not to require my kids to get COVID-19 vaccine in order to be able to attend the school. As a parent, I have a right to decide if my kids should or should not take the vaccine, not the school board, school district, or government. Thank you. End of comment. The next comment is from Angelina Lazruk. No on vaccines for our kids. It is not necessary. Kids' COVID death rate is under 1%. Again, their data neither verified by staff. That is the end of the public comment.
Thank you so very much. Thank you, parents, community, for your comments and your concerns in the letters that you have written. We will authorize the board, the superintendent and cabinet to please investigate and get back with whatever necessary questions to be answered. Any other comments from anyone of the board members? Hearing none, thank you so much. And we will wait to hear answers from those comments. And now we will continue on with our board agenda. And we move into item 4, Superintendent's update. Are you ready, Superintendent?
Madam President, pretty much the entire 2-day retreat is the superintendent's update, so I will be not having a separate item for that.
Very good. Thank you. So with that, we will now move into our study sessions, starting with our retreat, and I will turn it over to our superintendent, Dr. Peterson. You're on.
Thank you so much, Madam President. Just really want to welcome everyone to the GCC Mid-Year Retreat. This is an annual experience and has been for many, many years. And I really want to affirm the board for their leadership and their willingness to come together twice a year for these in-depth retreats to really ensure the vision, mission, purpose, and strategic plan of the organization is cohesive, aligned, and moving forward. So thank you, board. I also want to set a little bit of context for the world we're living in right now. Today is the International Women's Day, and it was created to commemorate social, political, and economic achievements of women. And we really want to recognize this day across the GCC and recognize all of the amazing women that we have in the GCC, both in positions of employment and also as parents, guardians, supports, and stakeholders. So just want to recognize that International Women's Day is today. Also want to recognize, again, context in the world we're living in. We have many families from the area that you see represented here, whether that be Ukraine, Romania, Russia, Poland, Belarus, the whole area that you see on this map that is greatly affected by the war in that area. So we have many Slavic families with us represented in our schools and in our community who are hurting right now, and just want to acknowledge these difficult times. Also, in painting a picture of the context within which our retreat is happening, just really want to remind you that the pandemic is not yet an endemic, although we're hoping that's what we're moving towards. And the effects of the pandemic continue to create a great cost. We certainly have seen and understand the great number of statistics showing that those that could least affect the impact of the pandemic were those that were the most affected, and many of those are in our schools. Our teachers, our staff, our administrators continue to do amazing things to help mitigate that trauma, that impact, but it comes at a cost to staff, and we just really want to recognize all of our staff members who have been giving their very best throughout these difficult times, and that there's still more difficult times to come as we continue to try to mitigate learning loss, trauma, and other impacts of the pandemic. We've always said in the GCC that we can do hard things, and that continues to be the case. It's been a bit of what's held us through as we've come through those things that you just heard about. And as this quote says, if it wasn't hard, everyone would do it, right? It's hard. It's being hard that makes it great, but it's getting through hard things that makes us great, all of us who are coming together to serve our students in the GCC. A year ago, we were in the first full year of the pandemic, and we were talking about how we were going to continue to need to dream and design, adapt and persevere, and continue through that loop. And it was a very apropos message for that moment, a lot of adapting and persevering. As we came into this school year that we're in now, we had hopes that we would certainly before now be rising above and beyond the pandemic, maybe farther than we are. But we have been utilizing our motto of curiosity, courage, and commitment as we're bravely rising and continuing to be GCC strong. And I think that we continue to focus around the way that our staff, our students, and our community has continued to rise. There's great hope with the notification by the governor and others that the masking in schools will end at midnight, March 11th. And we're very hopeful. While that will not undo the impact of the pandemic, it certainly will create a more sense of returning to normal for some of our individuals in the organization. Just a reminder that what we're doing today is about vision. and it's about action. So vision without action is a dream. Action without vision is just the passing of time, and action with vision is about making a positive difference. And that's what we're about in the GCC, is continually working on how we make a positive difference in the lives of our students and our communities. So again, to kind of the more official welcome, as Madam President said, really want to acknowledge any of our staff who are attending, any of our public, anyone who is listening to our governance and the transparency of our governance and our leadership together. Thank you for being with us today. We take our work together seriously, and the purpose and meaning of what we do matters. Mr. Sample has shared with you a little bit about our norms for keeping our microphones off unless we're speaking today. And we're certainly being led by a number of amazing staff members today. I want to affirm everyone who across the next 2 days is going to be presenting information. Everyone will be keeping their microphones off while the speaker is presenting, and our format continues to be Zoom. As you can see, we've got quite a bit of material to share, and staff will continue to support the board in the sharing of that information. Just a reminder of the goals of the retreat. It's always about setting strategic direction and having agreement on that direction, continuing to work on our relationships and our connections, learning about and practicing best practice governance, understanding our vision, mission, goals, and direction for this year and beyond, keeping our core commitments and knowing what's important, and then also enjoying ourselves along the journey. And so a part of that alignment that you saw on the last slide with all those hearts in the shape of a heart is we continue to do our deep work around capturing kids' hearts and being a showcase district, if you will, for capturing kids' hearts. So one of the things we wanted to do was to start with good things, which we know is a key part of what we have done in our process with capturing kids' hearts. Jason, do you want to address this one?
Yes, thank you. So good afternoon, board. Really excited again to kind of kick us off with some good things. On this slide, two that we're really overly excited about. And one, I know each of you can't wait to get out to see, but we have officially had the plaque installed at the Rancho del Paso campus. And so the other day, Dr. Peters and I was visiting a few of the school campuses and sites and came across this at Rancho del Paso. We also was at one of our other campus where they had a plaque from, I believe it was 1969. So I just want you to know that 50, 60, 70 years down the road, people will see this plaque and remember kind of the group that brought it all together. So that really is something that's very exciting and happy, and we will figure out a way to get you guys a closer picture so you can see this.
Right. So just affirming their names are on, your names are on here.
Yeah.
So you may not be able to tell that, but this clearly states your role in creating this great school. So we'll send a closer picture of that.
So congratulations. The other thing that we're excited about is we have created a partnership with the Yolo County Food Bank as well as the Sacramento Area Food Bank through one of our community engagement specialists, David Manzuelos, who really worked hard. And so we brought to our students the first ever Epic Farmers Market. And so once a month, we have a farmers market at Epic in West Sacramento where students and families, and it's open to the community, can come and get fresh produce, vegetables, and it is all free. And so all they have to do is bring their bags and go shopping. We're really excited. So what you see here was our first event that we held 2 Fridays ago at Epic. Really proud of the work that they're doing out there and really excited about taking this to our community. Our next good thing, wow, I can't move it, is AXA, our AXA Region 3, every Student Succeeding Award. We had 2 awardees this year, both from the Savas, one from Sava North Market, and the other one from Sava Sims. Alicia Cunningham, really inspirational student that had a really heart-tugging story. You'll see Alina Gonzalez. That's her and her child there with Mr. Jason Wasserman, one of our teachers at Sava Sims. And so we really congratulate both of these students for their overcomer story. It really, to hear their story, and we plan to kind of share some more of that information later with the board, but to hear their stories and their overcoming really reminds us of the work and the reason why we do. So we want to congratulate these two. They were recognized by our AXA Region 3, and Dr. McCormick, you'll have to remind me what they get a check, so they get some money for something.
They do. They each get a little memento that they can use to support next steps for them.
All right, so thank you. And then finally, we're highlighting GIS here, but all across the entire GCC, we were celebrating kindness, and I probably could have put up some pictures of the Read Across America week also. So the last few weeks, we've been really celebrating kindness. GIS had a kindness day and a kindness poster contest, and had a chance again to be on their campus last week, walking through with Dr. Peterson and seeing kind of their passion and their heart. So those are some good things, some wonderful things that are happening at each of our campuses, or a few of our campuses. Dr. Peterson.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sample, and really want to be sure that the board continues to see, while there are hard things and tough times, there's a lot of amazing things happening on our campuses. I know you may be disappointed that you have not, across the last 2 years, been able to be on campuses as much. So we're bringing it to you so that you can continue to see and be a part of the great things our sites are doing. So thank you, Mr. Sample, for bringing that for us. Okay, this is our agenda for today and tomorrow, actually. But you can see today we're going to talk next about goals and our goals update for this year, as well as our diversity, equity, and inclusion update. We're going to talk a bit about the annual forms the board signs and agrees with, and go across the governor's January budget proposal, our special funds and how they're being spent, the enrollment in ADA over time, our multi-year projections, our proposal to increase the salary for our amazing staff, and then we have a closed session item, and that will be our agenda for today. On tomorrow, we're going to go into COVID and its impacts, and we're going to talk a little bit about the legislative and legal update. There's a lot of things to be talking about there. We're going to go revisit the reserve guidelines that we came to an agreement on 3 years ago. And I'll give you a facilities update, as we always do, talk about ELOP, which I will at some point let someone else explain all these acronyms, but there's a lot more acronyms this year, I will tell you that. Ed Services has a number of updates under that umbrella. We're going to talk a little bit about what's happening in the GCC for career technical ed, international baccalaureate schools, as well as our special ed program. We're going to update you upon your request on some of our contracts and consultants and the outcomes from the work that they're doing with us, revisit our strategic plan work, provide the board with the annual best practice governance training, and review our self-evaluation process for the board to confirm how the board wants to move forward with that, as well as our regular business items. So 2 very busy days of a lot of really important work. So I want to say, kind of have your oxygen mask ready and put your seatbelt on. So here we go. All right, Jason Sample, our Deputy Superintendent, and Dr. Christine McCormick will start us out on our agenda and talk about our goals update, as well as our diversity, equity, and inclusion update. Jason and Christine.
All right, thank you, Dr. Peterson. So here's what's interesting. I know we're trying something new. I can advance.
I don't seem to have an option to give you back control, but if you want to just tell me, I will advance for you. How's that? All right.
I
You
got
tell
you.
me. You tell me what. Did
Okay.
you get it back?
I got it back.
All right. There you go.
All right. So we first off kind of want to start off by bringing us back to our blueprint for excellence. As you know, board, we approved this, or you approved this, excuse me, during your fall retreat, in which feedback and input was given from our staff, our administrators, our foundation, our community business advisory council, our parent groups. And what we're reporting on is just kind of how we're doing in terms of our goals and our outcomes for the year. So with that being said, Dr. McCormick, and you have control.
Oh, well, look at that. How exciting. I love technology when it works. So great. So I am looking forward to giving you some progress towards those goals that we identified in the blueprint. So let's begin our journey here. So one of the first was around student-centered learning. So went to each of our sites and had them identify how they felt they were making progress towards this. You'll see lots of things here around improving technology, really integrating students back to campus, some great new partnerships with the Sacramento Youth Center, adding some components into math curriculum. We're really kicking off AVID, which is Advancement via Individual Determination program at Futures, and then looking at how we can support distance learning with some coaching cycles with some very specific work for our teachers. As we move into learning recovery and our transition back to our distance learning into full on classroom time, how do we best support our students that may have had gaps? We introduced the technology tools in iReady, which are really being used across the GCC. Some are using them specifically to support targeted intervention with, as you'll see, with Futures, that just-in-time intervention with EPIC. HLA is integrating them as well as GIS into how they develop and design their tiered intervention programs. COA has built an entire data dashboard that their WAS committee actually really commented on how useful it was for them to see the depth that they are using this new data to be able to support students. CCCS has an overarching response to intervention component that includes not only the academics, but the social emotional learning. And then SAVA has really made a philosophy shift about how they can help their students understand that earning credits, yes, is important, but what are you learning in that process? When we look at supporting student achievement and the goals, oh, there it goes. We have lots of different things we're doing here. You'll see iReady, new math curriculum, a lot of focus with our coherence work around math outcomes. EPIC is our only school that's in comprehensive support and improvement. So they're really aligning their plan around those inquiry cycles that they developed in coherence and improving those dashboard outcomes. We've added some facility space in our SAVA programs, and then HLA is working diligently towards their PYP authorization for IB. We can't do any of this without making sure that we're connecting with our community, our parents, and our caregivers. And slides are moving on their own. This is very exciting. All right, I'm gonna just leave things alone. Hopefully they'll stay here. But lots of great things to connect our families to our campuses. You'll see a couple different carnival activities that you have. And I think we could add here for EPIC, their farmers market as well. Community partnerships with college fairs, really broadening what our engagement looks like across the board to our communities and families. Lots of creative virtual parent nights, just so many different ways that our schools are really looking at bringing the community in, even in a time when we couldn't bring people on campus. And then the ACES program at HLA has gone through quite a restructure to make sure that our parents and caregivers are getting the support they need to support their students. We've made some great curriculum component updates and upgrades, even within a pandemic, around English learners, definitely around making sure that we're adding some rigorous electives, lots of math curriculum, and then much work around problem-based learning for the middle school program at SAVA. as we look at our school cultures and environments, again, really aligning to how do we best support our students that are coming back to us, moving away from that virtual environment back to being on campus, and having components of integration around social emotional learning, character education, really identifying challenges for students, components of mindfulness. How do we make sure our parents understand the importance of having their child at school, which is help to reduce our chronic absenteeism, looking at systems for coherence and equity and access, and then bringing our student voice into the conversation on our campuses to make sure that we are ensuring that students are in an environment that they want to learn in as well. College career readiness is not just something we focus on for our high school programs, but we're seeing that across the board within the GCC with inquiry-based items, lots of hands-on learning, really looking at expanding and growing CTE facilities and pathways, and as well as how can we integrate into our after-school programs some different ways to help our students understand what else there is beyond their time, even in elementary and middle school. And we can't do any of this work by making sure that we are supporting, training, and hiring staff, whether it's early literacy block grant training, making sure that we're connecting staff and taking best practices across schools, providing learning specifically around curriculum or equity, improving our IB and English learner programs, making sure that for our programs that have students that are coming to them that have not had a success before, that we are addressing some of those needs. And then with that avid implementation at Futures, there is quite a large training component that comes along with that, which continues to grow our staff and their ability to serve students at all of our schools.
So another main portion of our blueprint for excellence was our work around diversity, equity, inclusion. Dr. McCormick, I'm going to ask you to just advance my slides. So in addition to our core commitments, our goals, and 2021-22 goals was also our strategic plan for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Later on in our report out tomorrow around our contracts and consultants, we'll talk a little bit about the work that we did with Hanover, research around our equity work this year, as well as some equity work that we did directly targeted at some of our school campuses, which we'll share with now. Next slide. So this year in the GCC, we focused out of all of our goals on goal number 2, which really was to reduce the opportunity gap for structurally disadvantaged students. And so each of our schools was very intentional about working towards this goal within our equity plan so that we're all working on the same thing. And so Dr. McCormick is going to walk us through what some of our schools did in terms of that work.
So when our schools got together, our administrators got together this summer with their retreat, we asked them to identify 3 actions. And then we've monitored those actions with them with some check-in points to make sure that the steps that they put in place to achieve those actions were moving forward, and then reflecting on what was working and what they needed to refocus on. So many of our schools will have overarching themes, and some will have very specific actions that are sort of 3 different directions. So if you look here with our CCCS main campus, not only have they put together a SEL care team, that connects very much with the work they did around their CKH recharge, but then they also really looked at how are they supporting our English learners to ensure they have the appropriate supports in place and building out that program. They have had an increase in English learner students, and making sure that they have systems for that is very much part of the work that they have focused on around equity. For our K-8 campus, because they received the early literacy block grant, there was many components of that grant that really caused them to do some root cause analysis around equity and access for all their students, which they have transferred. That grant is a TK3 grant, but they have really embedded all the way across the K-8 campus with their RTI interventions, as well as their, again, new English learners, something new that we had not seen a large number of with our CCCS schools before. So really making sure that they are providing equitable access to content for all the students that come on campus. As we look to Community Outreach Academy, they, as I mentioned before, as they were complimented on in their WASC process, they have done lots of work around data, being able to really dig into that root cause analysis of where there may be inequities on their campus, starting with that iReady assessment, looking at their student study team process to make sure they're identifying the need for early intervention early, and then revisiting it often for students, and also making sure that they are not missing an opportunity to support a student because they don't have access to technology or the internet at home. So theirs was an overarching focus over the campuses to look at that data and really spend time digging deeper than they ever have before to ensure that every student has what they need to learn. Epic as well looked at iReady, looking at those data components, realized that they needed to add some additional support for their English learner newcomers. So they moved to a process with Imagine Learning. And then because they received the after school program grant for the first time, being able to really add elements to their after school program to provide students an opportunity to continue to learn and to have access to different electives that they may not have had access to during the school day, but also making sure that they're providing interventions not only during the day, but additional supports before and after school for students and families. As we move to futures, I've talked several times about their Avid implementation that has many, many data components that they will continue to research, develop, and analyze that will allow them to look at their school and ensure that they are being inclusive and providing equitable access, which goes down to a master schedule on a high school campus, making sure that there aren't barriers for students that are unable to take higher level courses because they're missing an opportunity in the master schedule because it's a singleton or they don't have the appropriate interventions prior. So that is one component of the work they're doing. And that has allowed them to really look at not only the 40,000 foot view on futures, but digging and spending more time down at that deep data analysis component, using iReady, using common assessments that were developed through their coherence work to ensure that they are giving every student the opportunity they need or providing them the tools they need to be successful. GIS also really took advantage of that iReady data analysis, as well as a new math curriculum that was aligned to the iReady math components. They have taken all that intervention work, that data analysis, designed and built out an intervention program to support students, and then really taken the lead on academic conferences. So there's not just a single time when they're looking at student achievement, but a broad opportunity to have teachers, staff, students, and parents collaborate and have conversation about how we're ensuring that students have access to what they need. At HLA, more work around root cause analysis, whether it be specific around discipline data and what they can do to decrease suspensions and allow students to have regular access to their teachers, or chronic absenteeism. How are they making sure that the students are on campus to get the learning they need? And then, as I mentioned in their goals, they have had quite a broad student agency initiative, running focus groups, having lunch conversations with small groups of students, just even informal conversations across campus, and then some very targeted work in classrooms so that they are making sure to hear student voices. For our SAVA programs, adding some conversation that may not have been intentional before about student credit progress, adding to that quarterly grad checks, and then really as an entire SAVA team, how are they looking at student engagement? Going back to the goal they had about moving from just earning credits to graduate to really making sure that students are learning and getting the building blocks they need to ensure that they can take that next step once they get that high school diploma. And that is the end of our update.
We'll be
All
happy to
right.
take any questions.
Yeah. Any questions, Madam President or Board, in relation to the goals update or the diversity, equity, and inclusion update? I'm scanning. I don't see any hands, so I think we must have wowed them,
Okay.
Mr. Sample and Miss Dr. McCormick. We must have wowed them with the great work. Oh, I see Mark Anderson's hand is raised.
I am wowed.
Okay.
But, one question regarding the math. Math has always been an issue for GCC as far as some of our empirical data that we have. How do you feel we're doing with these programs that we've put in place at the schools? Are we seeing improvement? It's just a general question.
We continue to need to do more specific work around mathematics. I think we have made a lot of progress. Not having those sort of benchmark CASP assessments. But if you look at our data specifically around iReady, we are seeing growth. And that growth is indicating that we will see that same trajectory in our CASP testing this year. Tomorrow, when we review some of our contracts that we have, I look forward to filling you in on the specifics we're doing around math and some really exciting work that we have seen that started honestly as something we were doing around math thinking classrooms that has really broadened into a lot of subject areas. So we'll talk a little bit more tomorrow, but yes, I think we're making some movement.
And Dr.
Perfect.
McCormick, if I could clarify, do we not see the same trends across the state in terms of mathematics? Okay, so I mean, it is our area of focus. It's everyone around us area of focus. I do want to really affirm Dr. McCormick and Dr. Heather Gold, her director of academics, and they've been working really hard with our site principals and our sites on this, and really appreciate your attention to this. And yeah, we're looking forward to seeing some other data on it as well. So thank you, Mark. Any other board members with questions?
Dr. McCormick, could you talk a little bit more about the AVID program and the training? What are the acronyms, please?
Sure. So AVID is Advancement via Individual Determination.
Okay.
It is a nationwide program to support. It actually could start in junior high. We specifically have it in high school. The Futures team came to their budget meetings and their local control accountability plan meetings saying they wanted to implement it. So it's intense training for administrators and teachers. There are a variety of strategies to help engage students. Futures has done some work around common AVID strategies across campus. An example that you might have seen would be Cornell Notes is an AVID strategy. Being able to have a regular sort of systematic process for students to take notes. There is also, as they continue to learn more and move from this initial year of training into more subject and content specific training, the teachers will get more and more strategies that will help provide student voice and choice in the classroom and really allow students who may not, it started as a program for first-time college students in a family. That's really been the focus, but it has grown sort of nationwide into a process to provide strategies to help students come and learn in a way that best meets their needs. So they're just beginning the journey, just doing their first round of data, and they're really looking forward to the next step as they learn more.
Okay, thank you.
This is Harry. I have a question.
Yes, Harry, go ahead.
Number one, the math is something that I was having a few little problems myself with helping my grandson. And I can see why, because they have them dealing with triangles, rectangles, and all this, geometry already. And I'm looking at this, what is a square over here? What's a radius and all these things? And I'm saying, wow, second grade? So I can see some of that. The other thing is the suspension at HLA.
Mhm.
I know a program that we had years ago called conflict managers,
Mhm.
where we had students deal with conflicts of other students, and they would have to go before a committee of their own peers. And we used the kids that was getting kicked out and being suspended as managers. And we did some great things with that. So that's something I would tell them to take a look at.
Thank you, Harry. We appreciate your input and we appreciate your help with your second graders geometry as well. So you are absolutely right in your observation that from the time you went to school and even the time I went to school and even the time these babies, Jason and Christine, went to school, the curriculum has been pushed down farther and farther in terms of rigor. So your observation is absolutely accurate. So thank you for that. Any other board members? Else we'll move on to the next item. Just kind of monitoring. I don't see anything. All right, so we're going to move on to our next item, which, as I understand it, is annual forms. Jason, I believe annual forms is going to be you and Miss Melissa.
That is correct. So, all right, Dr. Pierce, you have to advance me. I'm
Okay,
sitting here, I'm like, go, go, go.
I just didn't know if you wanted to click on something or what. So here you go.
Oh, there
I
we
will
go.
be your clicker. I will be your
Uh,
clicker.
I can do that.
Okay.
All right. So our annual forms, Melissa and I would like to just kind of take a few minutes to cover the annual forms for the board. You're going to receive digitally what we give you every year, which is our board binder. And this year you'll get it in a digital format. As always, the board binder contains a number of items. The first one is kind of what's our mission, vision, goals, and core commitments. All of those items are contained in our blueprint, starting on page 3 of your board binder when you receive it. And so we this year just decided to put the blueprint in because that is the structure, that is kind of our direction that we're going in. You'll see on page 31, kind of again, the job description for the board. And this is the job description that each of you are fairly familiar with. It's something that you created many years ago to say this is kind of the job expectation for a board member of Gateway Community Charters that you would like to have. And so that item will be there just again to remind each of us of kind of the role. On page 35, you'll come across the Statement of Values and Code of Ethics. Again, this was a board adopted item that you adopted to say these are the values that you have for the organization, as well as the Code of Ethics that as board members you want to follow and employ. That then leads us to the board member agreement that is on page 39. This is an annual agreement. You'll receive this. You'll sign it. It's also signed by the board chair. And that's also just kind of kept in the board's files to say, you know, this is my agreement as a board member of what I want to do, how I want to support the organization, how I want to support our students and our staff. And so this should look very similar to exactly how it's been for the previous years. Conflict of interest, you know, one of the things that we have always, as an organization, practice is very transparency, as well as being an organization that is a best practice. And so we have always held a conflict of interest policy on page 44 of your binder when you receive it. You will notice it's the same policy that we've had. And as a board, and as well as key staff or key employees, we sign and we go through and we check usually if we have any conflicts. Traditionally, you've never had any conflicts within business practices, and so it's usually a fairly easy form to fill out. Which leads us then to our Form 700. It's that time of year, again, where elected as well as officials who are on governance boards will submit their annual Form 700. And traditionally, board, you have always been able to have no reportable instance, and it's usually the short form versus all the additional schedules. And so you'll receive this item where you'll sign it and submit this back to Melissa DeMarco, who will register that as received. On page 70 is the board confidentiality. And again, this is just a form that says that as a board, one of your governing practices is to carry forth confidentiality of personnel matters, confidentiality of organizational plans. And so this is just codifying your commitment to keep the matters of the organization confidential. And so again, that is something that you have signed in the past, and it's in your theme. Page 71, when Dr. Peterson and I was going through this, she said, it always changes, don't we? And so you will see your board dates. Yes, they are changes, but at the beginning of the year, you do approve your board calendar for the year. And again, we do make adjustments and changes, but this should be something that you have already seen. Again, it's just in your binder as one of the tabs that you usually will keep. Here's the board calendar. I won't bore you with the details of the agenda online format. Melissa, did you want to share anything about the agenda online other than you have access? Most of you do know how to get into the Gamut system, and we also usually will share the entire packet with you via PDF for your ease of reading your agenda binder. But should you so choose, in your binder are the instructions of how to get through the California School Board Association's Gamut or Agenda Online platform. Page 75 will include your latest bylaws. As you may remember, the board updated your bylaws on May the 21st, 2021, which was a very minor adjustment that we did to be able to claim our tax exemption for our Rancho Del Paso property. And so you have in your binder kind of the latest copy of that bylaws that is there. And then page 89 is just kind of our function chart. By no way is this everything that happens in the GCC, but it's a summary of kind of our various roles and responsibilities and areas that we work to support our students, our families, and our staff. And so that is page 89. With that being said, I will answer any questions, and Melissa will share with you what you're going to receive in the mail and the process to return that. So Melissa?
So, sorry. So I'm going to digitally send you this packet so that you guys can go over and everything. I have probably a feeling that everyone's going to want a physical copy of it, so you guys can mail back those annual forms to me. So we'll make sure that we send out on Friday your actual annual board handbook with a posted envelope, so you can return those annual forms back over to us. If there's any questions, feel free to reach out to Ina or myself, and we'll be able to help you.
All right. Yes.
It was a little difficult hearing. I had trouble hearing some of what Melissa was saying. On Form 17, will you fill out, Melissa, most of the information for the board members and all of that? And then they just have to sign.
I think I can provide you last year's copy so that you guys have that at hand. I think legally I'm not allowed to fill it out for you, but I'm happy to supply last year's copy so that you guys know what you did last year.
Okay, good.
And as she was saying, I agree, Melissa, for some reason, it's a little hard clarity wise. It's feeling a little bit muddy, your sound. But what she was saying, Ms. Campbell and board, is that as you get the forms, if you have any questions, you can call her and she will assist you in the filling out of forms.
Great, great. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions about our forms? And again, this is the highest level of best practice and transparency, and we want to thank the board for your continued commitment to that area, and we appreciate that. Okay.
All right.
Dr. Peterson.
Yes, thank you so much. I have always been grateful to this board for being willing to go above and beyond what is the minimal in order to be of the highest integrity. What we're going to do at this point is we are going to take a quick 15-minute break. It's built into our schedule, 2 15-minute breaks today, just so those of you that are wondering about taking care of your needs. So it is right now, according to my watch, 1 o'clock. So we will go dark, if you will. Stay on, do not sign off, but you can turn off your sound, turn off your video, and we're going to take a 15-minute break and then be back together again at 1:15. Mr. Sample, anything I need to say direction-wise other than that?
No other direction. We'll need to just go dark, but yes, we're fine.
15 minutes, we will be back together. All right, I do believe we are back. Kind of checking to see if Madam President and Mr. Vice President are back with us.
Mr. Vice President's here. You have me locked out.
You're locked out?
Well, it says the video is under your control. Oh,
Well,
okay. Very good. Can you hear me okay?
we can hear you and see you. And I just want to be clear for the world at large, since we are still being recorded. I had no control. I never have any control. And I'm sure it was a technical glitch of some kind, but you are being seen and heard. So I think you're fine.
Yeah.
Okay. I am in a different place, so I've had a few technical issues, so hopefully I will have them worked out at this point.
We are hopeful as well. So, so thank you, board, and glad to have everyone back from their break. We are moving into a very big and important chunk of our retreat for today, and that is kind of the chief business official show, if you will. We're going to hear about the governor's January budget and how that affects the GCC. Remember that the governor's January budget is a proposal. It's not yet affirmed, right? We still have a May revision and then we have an adoption. So some of this may change, but this is our best understanding from what's available at this time. And then Ms. O'Meara from there is going to go into our multi-year projections by school to help the board understand where we are looking forward by school site. And then Jason is going to support the board by discussing what we are proposing for salary increases for our amazing staff. And then we'll also take a look at enrollment in ADA over time, as well as another look at our special funds, because there are so many special funds. And what have we received? What have we proposed to receive? You know, how those things are progressing forward. So that's a whole lot of in-depth information. And most of it is Ms. O'Meara, our CBO, but some of that is also Jason Sample. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. O'Meara.
Good afternoon, governing board president, superintendent, and cabinet colleagues. Is there a way I can get control of the slides, Jason?
Yes, you should have it.
I don't. Oh, we do.
I think you did. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So I'm gonna go over quite a bit of information. So we'll go ahead and get started with the governor's January budget, which took place mid-January. I'll go ahead and just get started. So some of the topics we'll cover is the California's economy right now, the LCFF factors, the STRS and PERS increases, and then other federal and state funding for K-12. Oh, went too far. Okay, so this is a loaded slide, but I'll go over some of the main things that are happening positively in the economy. Is that we see significant increases for personal income tax and sales tax, two of the three big taxes. The other one is corporate. So these have shown an increase. Therefore, the California general fund surplus is $45.7 billion. And $16.1 billion will be coming to education. The governor reflects significant reserves, also known as the rainy day fund. So that's good for education. Some of the negative or uncertainties that we have with the economy is obviously the COVID-19 virus is also causing inflation. And we're seeing hikes in the stock market. We're also seeing housing prices increase by 18.5%. Single family home medium right now is $782,000. So that's very unaffordable for a lot of families.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
if I could also insert for the board's sake that the January's governor's budget proposal was also pre-war in Ukraine. And while we didn't make note of that in our presentation, as many of you are aware, there are many uncertainties about how that may affect even what we're presenting to you today. But we are presenting our very best understanding at this time. So,
Thank you, Dr. Peterson. Here's some of the economic outlook. So the gross domestic product is at an all-time high, slowly dwindling down in the future years. Same with inflation. You see it's at a 5.8, which is super high. Unemployment rate right now reaches 3.4 by the end of 2022. So these are just some factors that are important to take into consideration when looking at education and the economy. Here's the inflation over a 12-month period. So you can see here it's been super high compared to 2015 and up. So we're at 7% currently, which is really impacting the cost of goods and services right now. Oh, some popped up. Is that on my screen or somebody else's screen? Oh, there we go. I think it skipped a slide. I don't have control of the slides anymore. Melissa, Jason.
It says you have control. We'll stop control and we'll give it again.
Thank you.
Okay.
Nothing.
I think we are looking at something slightly different, Mr. Sample, just so that you know. Previously, we were looking at just the slides. Now we're seeing your entire desktop.
Yes. I
Okay,
can
so
also share if that's easier.
it's okay. The board can be patient with our technology. They understand. So we will just share it again. We probably inadvertently pushed a button we shouldn't have pushed, like all things technology are. So Mr. Sample will work to get that back up for you. This is the same experience board that our teachers went through during the pandemic about how to teach remotely and how to use the technology in the correct ways. So if you'll give us just a moment and your patience, we will for sure find our way through. See, if you can't tell, what Jason's doing is putting up a white flag to Melissa saying, Melissa, come tell me what went wrong. And so they are troubleshooting at this time. Okay.
I could share, Jason, if you're okay with that. I have the deck.
Jason's handling
got
it.
it.
There you go. Now
You
it is viewed in the way that we were viewing it. But which slide were you on, Miss?
You
Elmira?
got to go back a couple slides, so I'll let you know. Just let me see if I have access. I don't have access yet. It was on the 98 there. That's where I'm at. Okay. Do I have controls? Yes, I do. Thank you. Sorry about that. So resuming after the inflation conversation, we'll start talking about the Prop 98 and looking at K-12 education. Like I mentioned earlier, we have a 16.1 billion in new revenues, and the governor's planning to spend that heavily on one-time restricted investments. So I'll talk a little bit more about those. In our statutory COLA is 5.33, which is higher than last year. Okay. Some's popping up again. Am I the only one that's seeing that on my screen?
No, we are also seeing it,
Okay.
and I am not sure why. So Jason, we're back to seeing your entire computer screen instead of just the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
It might be easier for Elmira at this point to go ahead and share hers.
Share.
And
Yeah,
Alright.
because for whatever reason, when you're advancing, it's coming up to some kind of presenter view screen.
Okay,
Okay.
so can you stop sharing then, Jason, so that she can? Okay.
Do I have access to share? Yep. Okay. So can you guys see my screen? Yes?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can see it.
Okay, we were here on this slide. Okay, hopefully we don't have any more technical issues. So here's your 21-22 base ADA per ADA award. This is your 5.33 COLA per student. And this will be the 22-23 base grant. So this is how much we're getting per student per ADA. And then this is grade span adjustment. That's what the GSA stands for. So we get 886 for K3, and we get 912. We get 268 for grades 9-12. And that gives us these final numbers where the LCFF calculator picks up those numbers. And then we also get UPP and concentration dollars. They have remained at 65% concentration, which is the 20% additional. So that's continuing for the 22-23 year as far as the January update. Okay. Some other factors that are going to be impacting us next year is the STRS and PERS. So it's gone up from 16.92% to 19.10%. And PERS is going up from 22.91 to 26.10. So we're seeing significant changes from the initial enacted budget where they didn't think it was changing a whole lot. It's going up. Unemployment is going to stay at a 0.5 for the next year, and then it will drop back down. So you'll see it kind of flatten back out to what it was before. COLAs are at a higher level, like I mentioned earlier. So you'll see that the COLA will kind of dwindle down back to its normal 3% in the future years. And then another thing to note in this governor's budget meeting in January or update was that there's not going to be a relief like there was for prior years for the STRS and PERS mandatories. So we're hopefully going to get more news of that in May. But as of the January update, there's no relief for those. So I want to talk about the ADA cliff and the enrollment. So we're seeing that, so here's the school districts, and this is from school services. It's showing that in the 21-22 year, we're seeing a drop of 9.23% from just standard trends of ADA changes. And we're seeing that also in charter schools. So which means that we're seeing a lower percentage enrollment to ADA. Right, and I'll show you that, and I'll illustrate that when we're looking at the enrollment in ADA in our current schools. So enrollment's declining as well as the ADA to enrollment, like I said. So we're probably losing a lot of students out of state, maybe to non-classroom or homeschooling. So that's what's happening here, and it's statewide. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about federal and state funding that was reviewed in the governor's update. So like you'll see later on in the retreat, Dr. McCormick will talk more about the ELOP program, and this is the acronym ELOP, so it's Expanded Learning Opportunity Program, that offers before and after school intersession education for our students. So this is going to be ongoing and also a combination of one time. So there is a one-time increase to just the after school program, which is a different program. This is an existing program that we already have. And there'll also be a one-time infrastructure for the Expanded Learning Opportunity Program. And like I said, she'll probably, oh, that's here. I'm sorry about that. Hold on.
Hopefully we're not on fire. I don't smell smoke. I don't think anything bad is happening. So some sort of alarm. Mr. Sample, do you want to check on that for us?
Sure. Yeah, if you'll excuse me.
Again, I want to thank the board for your patience and the public as well. These things happen when you're spread out across an entire office, each in our computers managing our Zoom world. Sometimes things happen. I'm sure that Mr. Sample will come back and update us as to what is happening.
Sorry about that.
Ms. O'Meara, are you back on?
I'm back on. The alarms are off. I'm so sorry about that.
Okay. Do we know what happened?
Yeah, I'm at home and the alarms went off. Somebody's cooking downstairs and
All right. Sounds like a plan. We understand. All right. Go ahead and move forward with your presentation.
sorry about that. Okay, another of the programs that were conversed in the governor's update was the universal transitional kindergarten. As you know, we're starting to offer 4-year-olds transitional kindergarten, and it's going to be a 4-year phase-in. So for 21-22, the dates for the 5th birthday, September 2nd through December 2nd. So we'll be offering it to these kiddos, and then in the following year, it's going to move on to September to February, and it'll get extended until offering is available for all 4-year-olds. And it's also going to have lower classroom ratios than the kindergarten groups. There's also talk about early literacy one-time money. We still don't know how that's going to come into the LEAs, but we are expecting to receive some of these funds because it's for high needs schools and we're high UPP in concentration. Therefore, I anticipate that we'll be getting some money for early literacy to help with coaching and reading specialists. There were also conversations regarding multilingual schools and classroom libraries monies. So we're excited to see how that transitions out to our LEAs in the future. We also have a career pathway program, one-time money that's coming down. This seems to be an every year thing where we get one-time money for CTE programs. We currently this year have about $1.8 million worth of CTE programs that Mr. Maury Elliott manages. So these are some of the the focuses that the state wants to focus: technology, healthcare, education, and climate related fields, as they're seeing gaps in those fields. So super excited. Dual enrollment one time. This is money that will allow students to take classes that will count towards high school graduation and college credits. We still don't know exactly how this will be rolled out, but there will be more information most likely in the May revise. The substitute flexibility will continue to expand, will extend, allowing substitute teachers to teach 60 cumulative days for one assignment. So that's something that's continuing, realizing that there's a shortage in teachers currently. We also have the Student Nutrition Universal Meals, which requires us to do 2 free meals per day to any student who requests a meal. And we're currently, there's a $450 million one-time for the state for kitchen infrastructure and equipment. We're working with Twin Rivers, partnering with Twin Rivers to be able to access some of those funds and work collaboratively with them on that. We're also seeing additional funding for special education, looking at the base rate going from $820 per ADA to $715 per ADA. They're also going to increase the COLA buff by 5.33%, which is something that they haven't done historically. So they're also increasing the base grant amounts for special education. And then summary and next steps, we are working to implement right after second interim, the adopted budget prep work. So we'll be working collaboratively with sites in terms of looking at their LCAP, their actions, their goals, how to best serve students, and making sure that there's, that the money is utilized in the best way. And then we'll also have more information at the governor's May revise. Do you guys have any questions?
So just being clear for the board, that presentation was specific to the January governor's budget proposal. You still have much more information you're going to share with them. So questions that you have are that we'd like the board to direct are directly to the January governor's budget proposal information is shared, just to do that. I think Jack has a comment, Mr. Turner.
Yes, I appreciate the update and it was very, very informative. Thank you. I'm interested, well, first, I don't know who comes up with the acronyms, but ELOP, we have a whole new program here that's somehow we can put into our vocabulary. But the next point is on the declining enrollment statewide. Although the census shows that the California population is somewhat stagnated, that still doesn't, the decline in the student population, the students are out there somewhere. I really believe that's something that, we really need to look at. I'm not sure how we identify it or what sort of approach we can take, but those students still are there in California. And if they're not in the traditional K-12 operation or the charter schools, they're somewhere. And I'm not sure, I'm sure finer minds than mine can probably identify where they are.
Yeah.
Mr. Turner, if I could address that, I would say you're correct. But all we really have is anecdotal information. So a lot of parents have chosen to keep their young children home, to not have them either be exposed or to have their first school experience be a masking experience. That's anecdotally what we're hearing. The superintendents across the state are sharing that a great deal of the student loss is at the young level. But we agree there is not a lot of data out there. The stagnation is there. There is some moving to other states based on political and other interest, but not to the degree that we're seeing the loss of students. So we will continue to reach out. I think it will be very curious, Jack, across the state to see what happens as the masking mandate goes away and hopefully stays away. Does that in fact bring a number of those students back into the system?
Yeah, thank you. I think we'll come back and be revisiting this because as you know, growth is good and decline is really very devastating to an educational organization. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think the state is also monitoring it very closely to see what's going on statewide, because we're seeing this across the state. Different districts and charters are being affected by this.
Well, that reminds me another related question. Do you have any information of when the legislature is going to do away with the hold harmless on districts? Because that's going to have a tremendous impact on the educational segment once they stop funding students that aren't there.
Right. Tomorrow we have a legal and legislative update that Jason will be providing to update you on some various bills that are still under consideration, some of which are a bit of a soft landing in that area. So we'll hear more from him tomorrow. The other thing that I would bring up here in terms of enrollment and declining enrollment, we do believe with the amount of war and unrest in the Slavic nations that we're going to see a lot more immigration and more to our area. And certainly our Director of Government and Parent Relations, Mr. Terekoff, has been on top of this, but I would not be surprised if we don't find ourselves serving a number of students and families in the near future in relation to those that are immigrating here from the war, if you will. But we'll continue to update you on that as well.
I had just one question. I was looking at the ADA that is proposed to increase, and I wanted to ask Omari, where are we in terms of numbers within the state? Are we still at 45? Are we still at 50? Or are we moving upward?
Can you be more specific, 45 or 50 in the state?
In terms of number with the ADA, 8,000 and something, or
I'm still not getting it. 8,000 and something, 40, 50, what are,
per ADA per student.
Are you talking about this slide?
Yes, that's the one I'm talking about.
So
yeah,
where are we statewide? We're still pretty on the lower end. I'm
On the
not
lower
exactly-
end, that's what I wanted to know. If we're still on the lower end, in terms of, at one time, we were the 50th in the state.
Oh, you mean in the United States?
Yes,
How
United States,
how
yes.
does California fit in the ranking
Right.
of education funding in the United States? We don't have that in our presentation, Miss Lily, but we can certainly research how these various increases may be affecting that status. But you're right, we've always been in
Yes.
the very near the bottom, for sure. What we presented today, what Ms. O'Meara presented today, is about, you know, the proposed budget under the January governor's
Yeah.
budget proposal, but it does not compare to what the rest of the states are doing or have done, or where we stand with them. Just
Okay,
so that we
wondered
know.
if we had some inkling of where, if
I
we're moving up, that was all.
I
Okay.
do not, but I commit to staff finding out for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And we're definitely going to move into our next presentation, which is our next presentation the special funds presentation? Okay.
Yes.
So go ahead, Ms. O'Meara.
All right. Hopefully this one will go a little bit smoother than the last one. Okay, special funds. So I'm going to talk a lot about one-time funding and kind of where the funds of that 16.1 million are going towards. So you'll be able to see kind of materialize that 16.1 and how it impacts our LEAs. Okay, so we're getting the ELOP, or Expanded Learning Opportunity Program, and you'll see there's another acronym called ELOG, not to confuse the two. So this one is for classroom-based K-6 expanded after school and summer school for a high needs and intersession education. And we're receiving 1170 per UPP ADA. So that's our unduplicated. UPP is for unduplicated pupil percentage. So these are our EL, free and reduced, homeless. So these are those population. And then each site is getting a minimum of 50,000, and we are to use those funds by 6/30/2023. And I won't go through the awards. You can see those numbers on each of the pages. So I'll continue. The Universal Pre-Kindergarten Planning and Implementation Grant is to offer the 4-year-olds early education. The plan must be adopted before June 30th of this year, and the funds must be used, the first phase of funding must be used by 6/30 of 2024. We're expecting that this will be ongoing. This is just planning and implementation money. So these are what we were awarded in total for the sites that will be implementing this program. It's 348,000. Additional funds pending budget trailer bill. So this is an ongoing program that they're planning to kind of phase in. So we expect ongoing funds for this. Special Education Learning Recovery Plan, we applied for these funds. And this is for just learning recovery for our students with disabilities. The funds must be spent by 6/30/2023. It requires a 1-to-1 match. And our award in total is 361, and you can kind of see how much each of our sites are getting for this. And our special education, we already have, you know, our federal and our state funding. So this is in addition to that. So, Educator effectiveness is for professional learning for our certificated and classified. So workshops, conferences, any type of PD that we see important for them to be part of. This is what this money is for, and that is to be used before 6/30 of 2026. And there's 1.2 million in funds for our different LEAs. And I'll take a little bit of time just so you guys can see the different award amounts before I move on to the next slide. Okay, A through G completion improvement grant. This is to help students have the A through G course requirements to be able to attend four-year universities. Each site will get a minimum of $75,000. We are expecting to see money for CCCFs, futures, and the SAVAs. Based on the awards, going to be based on the 2021 UPP amounts for the 9-12 grade span, and that comes out of your CalPADS reporting. And the awards were posted yesterday. So we are expecting to hopefully get more information on that. And this is the other acronym, ELOG, Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant. And this is to be used for learning recovery, extending instructional time, integrating student supports to address other barriers to learning, support for credit deficiencies, additional academic services, and professional development. So these monies must be spent by 6/30 of 2024. And we have about 3.8 million awarded. Some of it was spent last year. So technically this year we have 3.7 to spend. So some of these are multi-year grants that you can spend, over the course of the year. So if we spent some monies last year, the carryover is our current year availability to spend. Okay. The multi-tiered system of support is a program that brings together the response of instruction and intervention, which Dr. McCormick talked about earlier. Some of our sites are working on the RTL, responsive instruction and intervention. And then it also combines the work of positive behavior interventions and supports and aligns those supports to serve the whole student. So that's what this funding is for. It's a competitive grant with Orange, I believe it's Orange County Department of Ed, and it aligns with the high unduplicated student population. So currently we have an award of $480,000, and that's estimated to support all sites. So it's built as a consortium. So we applied as a consortium. So the 480s for all our sites. Okay. In-person instruction is for the purpose consistent with providing in-person instruction. So this kind of came out when schools were remote and, trying to get teachers and students to come back. And this money was for that. We had to implement returning back to school at a certain time frame. We met that, so we received the $1.4 million that must be spent by 9/30 of 2024. Okay. The food service infrastructure grant. So LEAs participating in national school lunch, breakfast, and lunch will be receiving these fundings. And like I mentioned before, we're partnering with Twin Rivers to access these funds. So we will be working collaboratively to see how we can, be able to access and for them to support us in this component. The American Rescue Plan for Homeless Children and Youth. So we applied for these funds to be used on tutoring, supplemental instruction, and enriched education services, including needs and eligibility for programs and services for our homeless population. It must be spent by 9/30 of 2024. And it was awarded, they're small amounts, but I'm sure that these dollars are very valuable to our homeless youth. So 20,000. Okay, learning loss mitigation. So this is an award that was given to us in prior year. And so it's a 3-component grant. It was due as a response to COVID-19, extending the instructional time for students, additional core academic for students, integrated services, and support teaching and learning. So technology, mental health services, professional development, student nutrition, anything that's addressing the health and safety of our students. So the Corona Relief Funds, which were nicknamed the CRF funds, expired on 5/31. Just a reminder of, kind of what all this one-time money we received. There was 3.4 that was received, and we completely expended it last year, so nothing was returned to the state. And then we also had the state learning loss mitigation funds that expired last year, 6/30/2021, and we were awarded $466,000, and that was also completely expended, so nothing went back to the state. And then we currently still have some funds that carried over this year. The Governor's Emergency Education Relief, also known as the GEAR Fund, that expired or is expiring on 9/30/2022. And we spent about $25,000. So we still have $54,000 this year that carried over for those 3 sites. So just kind of keeping you in the loop of what's been spent and kind of where we're at with this one-time funding. So now we're going to go on to the ESSER funding. This was also a direct result of the pandemic to use for PPE, addressing learning loss, summer school, extended learning, technology. So we completely spent down ESSER 1 as of February 2022. Our director, Valerie Rogers, completed that reporting. We had $257,000 in carryover. A lot of it was spent last year, but we have completely spent it down and nothing was returned to the state. ESSER 2, so now we're going into, so there's actually 3, ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3. So same allowable uses as ESSER 1 is just additional funding, must be spent by September 30th of the following year, 2023. We were awarded 5.6. So as you can see, the numbers just continue to get higher. So ESSER 1 was 1.3. And we see ESSER 2 is 5.6, and then you'll see ESSER 3 is actually almost double as ESSER 2. Our carryover was 4.6. We did spend about $1 million in the prior year. We've spent down so far to date 3.1, and we're expecting that this will be completely spent by the end of this year. Okay. ESSER 3, like I said, doubled. So there's your 5.6 in ESSER 2. ESSER 3 is 10.1 million. So must be spent by 9/30. So they give you an additional year every ESSER award that we get. And this is primarily what's going to fund our one-time activities for the following year, year and a half. Okay. ESSER 3 has a second component of learning loss. So this one has to be specific to student needs and student instruction. It also has allowable, same as the allowable uses for ESSER 1, but it's more targeted to the student instruction component of it. And this was $2.5 million. And you can see how that's spread out through our sites. Here's a summary of our awards and year to date. So you see the program titles on the left-hand side, when they have to be spent by, how much each site received this current year, the awards in total, what's expended year to date. So I want you to focus on the components. The 27.4 million is what we receive. We've spent to date, as of when I ran this, 7.5. So we were pretty close to half the year when we did this. So I'm anticipating we'll probably spend another amount, probably about the same. So we'll be about 15,000 spent, and then this will probably go down to about 12 at the end of the year. So kind of shows you what we've spent down, where we have balances. So here's the Learning, the 3 grants that I talked about earlier, the ESSER one being spent down. So you can kind of see where we have funds and how much we've spent so far. And that's it. That's the end of that presentation. If you have any questions, be happy to answer any questions you have. Yes, Jack?
Again, thank you for the information, and I'm glad you're having to keep track of all those special funds for each school, because I can tell you it's monumental. So thank you to you and to your staff, and I appreciate the update. It's really impressive.
Lots of money.
I agree with Jack. I don't know. I'm glad it's you and your staff having to do this. It's just astronomical. There's a lot of money in there, and trying to keep up with it and spend it as it is demanded is gotta be just mind-boggling. But it seems as if you guys are on top of it and doing a great job. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It can be easy.
Thank you.
Okay, just checking to see if any other board members have any comments or questions. Just want to make sure everybody has a chance. Mr. Mandrick?
I just second all of that. It's mind-boggling, and I've been in the business for 30 years, so
Yes.
amazing. Thank you.
Well, one of the things I think you're noticing, and it may show up in another presentation, is I think tomorrow when we talk about legal and legislative maybe, is under Governor Jerry Brown, we went into what was called local control, and we actually got the message that we don't need categoricals, we need flexibility, right? And that's how we got LCFF. And a lot of what historically had been quote unquote categoricals or special funds, those all went away, and we were like, oh, relief. This is a return under new governor, new world to categoricals is what it is. It's a move away from the flexibility that we thought we were going to continue to have with how to spend our funds, unfortunately, with all the impact, as you guys have all noted. So we want to, in terms of Mr. Sample and Dr. McCormick and I, also affirm Elmira and Valerie and Yvonne and the entire business services team, because they are doing a tremendous amount of work and at a high level. So definitely want to affirm that. Ms. Elmira, which of these is next? Enrollment over time?
We have the enrollment and ADA over time.
All right, it's back to your show.
All right. Next presentation.
Mhm.
Okay. That was just the title page. So I'm going to be giving you a chart of kind of where the enrollment has been for each of our sites historically. So you can see CCCS has had a dip in the last couple years, but it's slowly starting to come back up. Having that extra virtual academy and having that option be available to students, I think has taken some of our other sites that are probably declining enrollment and had this option available for them to be able to increase. So this CCCS has increased, and the Virtual Academy has increased about 80 students from 2021 to 21-22. So this is a site that we're actually seeing an increase, which is different, but of course it's the dynamics of having the Virtual Academy available as another option. And then you have the universal TK impact impacting the future years too. So universal TK, we're expecting some students to make these numbers grow a little bit. Okay. And then I'm also going to be, after the enrollment component, we'll be looking at the trends of ADA to enrollment and what those percentages are looking like. The highlighted data is obviously the current year. So you can see significantly how it's dropped historically and what we're seeing currently and how it's impacting our LEAs. So the ADA to enrollment is actually lower. We're hoping that by P2, you know, this could also be reflective of work potentially still trickling in for independent study. So we might see a jump, hopefully for second interim or for P2 ADA reporting. Okay. Here is COA, and we can see that they have actually declined 148 students from 2021 to 21-22. The enrollment as of 3/4 was 1583. So it's actually jumping from CBED. So these are all CBED enrollments, and that's just, you know, a certain set of a time frame, and making sure that you're comparing, you know, CBEDs to CBED numbers. But our enrollment at this site currently is 1583. So we're hoping that this number continues to increase. But as at CBEDs, it was 1539. We also believe the universal TK will impact future years enrollment. So we'll see an uptick. Okay. The ADA to enrollment percentage is also low compared to historically. So you see it stayed in the 96-97% percentage, and we're seeing a 91.9. So again, students are staying home based on the recommendations of COVID. You know, work potentially is not being turned in. So we're seeing that across the state and across our sites. Okay, futures, we show a decline of 24 students from 2021 to 21-22. The enrollment as of 3/4 was 416. So it's actually lower than our CBEDS number. So that's kind of something we continue to track. And then the COA middle school and HLA incoming impact our future enrollment. So we're hoping that these numbers look better for next year. Okay, or ADA to enrollment, again, you're seeing this trend. You're seeing that 89.97. And again, these are numbers, projections. Obviously, we don't have our P2 number yet, but it's projected to be at 382 based on our P1 points. So you can see kind of where we're at, decline in enrollment, and the ADA percentage is also low. So Sava Twin Rivers. This right here you see is when all three sites were together, all three Savas, and then you see this huge drop. That's when they split. So you can see the split, and then Sava Twin Rivers students were here, but you're seeing an increase over the year. So that's great. We actually saw an increase at this site by 34 students. So again, this is a non-classroom based site that we're seeing potentially. This is where some of our students are going, right? So from 2021 to 21-22, we saw an increase of 34 students. We're projecting an increase conservative of 5 students in the future years. It might be more, but for now we're being a little conservative until we see the white of their eyes. Their ADA to enrollment was actually not severely impacted, which is great. So this one's at 97.11. This, yeah, so this is a little bit different, but again, that's an outlier, right, compared to our other sites. So this one's doing pretty well. Sac City Unified saw a decline of 54 students from the prior year. As of enrollment as of 3/4, we see 780. So we see a significant jump from CBED's date to current. So we're hoping that that number is able to maintain and hopefully into the future years. So projected to increase to 700. So we have it somewhat conservative based on trend. So again, until we see the white of their eyes. And again, this one's not as severely impacted as the non-classroom based, as the classroom based LEA's sites. So that's at 92%. So it's not super bad. It's actually pretty good. Sava El Grove, you see a decline of 7 students. So again, not a huge impact from prior year. The enrollment is at 341, so it's actually super high. It's actually at an all-time high currently. And then we're projecting flat enrollment based on CBED numbers. Again, we'll be monitoring that as students, you know, we have the intent to returns and we get all the additional information. Obviously, this information can change. These are just projections at a point in time. The ADA to enrollment, again, is somewhat in the good. We're not seeing it in the 80s, so that's a good sign. And again, I think we're seeing a pattern with the non-classroom and classroom-based sites, right? Higher learning. Actually, this is one of the sites that is growing. So we have an increase of 14 students from 2021 to 21-22. And then again, this is one of the sites that Universal TK will impact enrollment because we'll be expecting more students. We have our ADA to enrollment percentage. And again, this is one of the ones you'll see an impact of a drop in ADA compared to the last couple of years, which was more in the 90s. So we're seeing a little dip here. Gateway International, we're seeing an enrollment decrease of 43 students at CBEDs. And currently our enrollment is at 535. So it's actually a little bit higher than at CBED. So it's actually increased since that date. And then we're also seeing Universal TK impacting future years for this particular site. Our ADA to enrollment is at 91, a little bit of a drop from historical trends. And I didn't mention this earlier, but our 2022-23 year, we're kind of doing a mid-range. I kind of took an average of a low and prior year to kind of come up with a percentage for the future year. It's a little conservative, but it's not as low as where we have them currently. At Epic, we're continuing to see a decline. So you kind of see it from the 19-20 years, and it's just declining. So of 69 students from prior year. Enrollment currently is at 318. It's a little bit higher than the 21-22 CBED state. We have been doing significant amount of advertisement and community outreach to try to turn the enrollment trend back up. That's what's happening with Epic. And again, just like we're seeing with other sites, the ADA to enrollment projections are on the low side, coming down from trends. All right, I'm ready for any questions. Yes. Mr.
Again, thank you. And I particularly appreciated the enrollment to ADA statistics. A question on the SAVA, how did they get more than 100% on the enrollment to ADA at SAVA? Whatever they did, can we use it elsewhere?
So we're using CBED's date and for the enrollment, and they tend to enroll more kids on the second half of the year because of the nature of that site, right? So you have kids that start in traditional high schools, and then K-12 education, and then they decide to come into alternative education. So we see an uptick. That's a trend that we see for all the non-instructional, non-classroom based sites. So.
Okay, thank you. I knew it wouldn't work for the other classroom based, but I
It's a nice try, though.
Anything else, board members? Again, Amara, thank you so much for all the information and the hard work that you guys are putting in. Good information. And it's something the board has been asking for, so thank you.
You're so welcome.
Yeah, definitely want to again affirm the team on this. We also have our data department was very helpful on this. Our director of data and our coordinator of data were involved in helping produce some of the data as well. And as we know, we want to be cautious about looking at the data because what we're seeing is some anomalies related to the pandemic, right? And we don't know how that will carry itself forward, but we're certainly in discussion about, what these changes during the pandemic may or may not mean for the future. And I think, as Ms. O'Meara said, we will lean towards the conservative to ensure that we are in a good place to manage those changes. So we've gotten to enrollment over time. I'm assuming we're at multi-year projections, Ms. O'Meara.
So keep going. Okay. I wasn't sure if we were going to take a break or not, but okay. So multi-year projections by school. So here are the assumptions that we get from school services. This is actually a snippet of what I use for my MYPs. The statutory COLA, the LCFF COLA, the lottery per ADA, how much we receive, unrestricted and restricted, the mandated block grants, salary increase of step and column. So we always have this 2.5 step and column as people are hired, and they will start out as step 2, and then the following year there will be a step 3. So they get just natural increases every year as they're with us. Economic uncertainty, this is the reserve. So it varies from 3 to 5%. Our leases, we project a 3% increase. We have a California, the Consumer Price Index, that's at 3.69 in future years. Here's the state teachers retirement, the increase we're seeing at 19.1. These are just always have been 1.5 as far as I can remember. Here's the 0.5 that we'll see for unemployment, and then the drop in the 23-24 year. Our work comp is kind of stagnant at this level until we get more information. Public employees retirement, so our PERS has gone up from 22 to 26, and then we'll see a 27% in 23-24. Our Social Security has stayed flat at 6.2. And then these are our SELPA dollars and how much we get. And we see the increase here on our biggest bucket of special ed dollars, $715 per ADA to $820 to $849. And this is just based on the COLA. And then you have our federal is kind of staying stagnant at $125. And this is just a fee that is charged for the self-administrating our being part of the consortium with the SELPA. So that's a fee they charge us. Okay. So the way I created these was I did an unrestricted, just the unrestricted side of the house, and then I did a unrestricted and restricted. I didn't do a restricted side just because I only have so much room on a slide. And then also just because I like to focus a lot more on the unrestricted side. Obviously the restricted side, if you have restricted dollars or one-time dollars, then you have one-time activities. Once that money leaves, so does the activity. And so therefore it's kind of an in and an out, right? But your unrestricted budget, my favorite line here is this change in net assets. And really, are we living within our means, right? We have our revenue of 5.5. We have our expenditures of 4.5, and then this is what we have left over. This is our beginning balance, and this is our ending net assets. And this is what we will use to do our set asides, the reserve for economic uncertainty, or facility and acquisition, reserve for sustainability, right? So this is what we use to be able to make up those numbers. So this, making sure that we have enough money in the ending net asset is super important, but this line here really shows us, are they in good standing? A lot of these numbers show good positive numbers for the most part for most of our sites, but we also have to take into consideration that with the loss of one-time monies, they might want to continue funding certain positions. So we might see a dip in some of these numbers, but we will make sure that they stay within their their allocations and their revenues for future years. But this is what CCCS is looking like. And again, it's pretty similar to what you see here, the ending of net assets. Again, the restricted dollars is an in and out, and so you don't really see a change from this side. Okay. For COA, on the other hand, we're seeing a structural deficit, and I think that was shown even on the adopted budget. So that means that the revenue, and of course, this is a site that we're seeing a decline of 148 students in current year. And so that's really impacting them currently. And you see this deficit, structural deficit that we need to look at. So as we have lower enrollments, obviously we have to have lower staffing too. And so we're working really closely this spring with the site to ensure that we can balance this back up in the future years and for next year. So as you can see, the beginning net assets at 13.5 million, it's slowly trickling down the longer we don't address the structural deficit. Okay. And then here are some just data points on where we're at with enrollment. Where CBEDs in prior year CBEDs. So current year CBEDs was at 1687. Enrollment currently is at 1583. So it's actually lower than our current year CBEDs. So we're still seeing a decline. And so that's something that we got to make sure we look at. And then also we do have a huge ending net asset. We are looking into purchasing or financing surplus property, and so therefore we don't want this to continue to decline, right? We want to protect these dollars, and also once we do, if we're able to secure that surplus property, then there will be some facility improvements that will be needed at that site.
Miss O'Meara, if we could maybe look at the slide just for a moment because it's a little confusing. Do you think that you possibly have put the wrong number on current year and prior year? Because this makes the case that they have more students in current year's CBEDs than the year before. Did those two numbers maybe get transposed?
They might have been transposed. Now that you say that, yes.
All right. I'm pretty
yes,
sure
those
that
are transposed.
All right. All right.
So you're actually seeing an increase, which I thought that's what we saw in the enrollment slides. So. Yes, thank you, Dr. Peterson, for pointing that out. Okay. For futures, they actually have a pretty high reserve here in the ending net assets of 82.29 of expenditures. So they have a really healthy reserve. You can see that they have positive numbers in the change of net assets, your current revenue, minus your current expenditures are within, which is building just more reserves. Again, as we review the one-time expenditures and what has to go away, the site might decide to move some of those expenditures over to unrestricted. So yeah, and we will, this is a site that's being reviewed by Dr. McCormick and her team in terms of finding best ways to better serve our students with our LCAP. Okay, Sava Twin Rivers. Again, this one, we're seeing a positive trend. The ending net assets is pretty big. And that is because when the site split in 17-18 into 18-19, the fund balance did not move with Sava Sac City and Sava Elk Grove. The fund balance did not move with the students. So we're looking at actually, I think this has been a conversation that has come up during Aaron's tenure, but it has never happened. So we will be most likely bringing that back to you in our next board meeting for action. We're gonna look at what belonged to those particular sites at point in time at 18-19, beginning balance or ending net assets as of 17-18, and moving those dollars with the students that should have been moved a while ago. CBED's enrollments is showing a 34 student increase, so that's obviously helping them here. And then we're seeing then maybe you know, potentially having a just even out revenue to expenses, but they have enough reserves that will be okay. Okay. Did I move? Yes, I moved. So for Sava Sac City, we're seeing a structural deficit in the first 2 years, and that is because we're actually eating up the reserves to be able to fund the expansion of the CTE instructional space. And so that is why you see that negative 1.5 there. It's eating up the reserves that we had for the facility acquisition. The Sava Twin Rivers fund balance transfer will help complete funding of the facility project and also allow us to have some money in the reserve. CBIT's enrollment is dropped by 54, so that's another reason why we got to continue to review this site. But we are expecting an increase from current year to have 18 more students next year. Okay. Like Sava Sac City, this one will be receiving fund balance transfer from the 17-18 ending year. And we are also seeing that they can sustain themselves. They're living within their means. Again, the 22-23 year and the 23-24, that's reflective of positions potentially coming back. CBED's enrollment dropped by 7 students from prior year for this particular site. Higher Learning Academy, you see that they have positive numbers in the change in net assets, and CBED's enrollment increased by 14 students, so they also have healthy reserves, and TK, Universal TK, it will also be increasing, helping to increase their revenue since they will be getting more students. Okay. GIS, we are seeing also that they're living within their means, even though we've seen a drop of the 43 students from prior year. Their numbers are actually going up, as you can see, from the 522 of current year CBEDs to current year enrollment of 535. They also, like I mentioned, have healthy reserves, and TK will be also increasing our revenue in terms of enrollment. For EPIC, we're also seeing a structural deficit due to the decline in the drop in enrollment of 69 students. So that's pretty significant for the size of this site. And so as you can see in the second year, you see the expenditure go from 3.6 to 3.4. That's the amount of cuts we have to make, about 272, to get them back in balance. So that just gives you an idea of what kind of work we got to do with the site to ensure, oops, let me go back, to ensure that they stay within their marks of revenue. Increased marketing efforts, like I mentioned earlier, we're trying to get EPIC's, bring students back to EPIC. So with that, questions? Yes, Jack.
Again, I appreciate the information. Again, very, very informative. On Sava Twin Rivers, if my memory strikes me, there was some accounting reason why we couldn't transfer the reserves to the new charters. Am I missing something there? Because I think we talked about doing this years ago.
Yes, I think the concern from speaking to Aaron was that it could affect the funding determination reporting. And we did have a conversation with our auditors, and our auditors have said that those are things that can be explained. And we have worked collaboratively with Gilbert and Associates to make sure that we can do the entry and that it's going to be appropriately, and we'll pass out it. So we have been working with our auditors to ensure that we're doing it properly.
Well, thank you. That's really good news. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
One of the things we want to be clear is that this entire ability to do this that Ms. O'Meara and other staff have met with the auditors about is the integrity of dollars following students. So when the SAVA split, the dollars didn't follow the students that split. And so that is what we'll be verifying that we are doing, is ensuring the students that generated the funds, that the funds are following the students.
And like I mentioned, that will come back to you on the March 15th agenda, and we will go into it with more detail on how those numbers were determined.
Okay.
Are there any other board member questions or comments? I see no hands.
No.
We have 2 items left on our agenda for today. One is the salary proposal for increases, and the other is closed session item. I would be suggesting that we maybe take a quick break now and then come back to the salary proposal increase and the closed session so that everybody will be able to manage their needs prior to going into those 2 important items. So it is now 2:27. If we come back in 15 minutes, it would be what, roughly 2:43, something like that? 2:43 sound okay?
Sounds good.
All right, so cameras off, microphones off, and we will return.
Hello, Jack.
Hello, Bruce. Where are you?
I am in Bodega Bay.
Oh, you're up on the North Coast again. All right.
Yeah. We are staying with another couple in a house up here that had absolutely terrible.
Or just to remind you that we are
So I'm actually at the rental agency place. They gave me a room and a
board to remind you we're still
working out.
Are you just up there on a break? Or are you going fishing or what?
No, we're just up here for just spend a week.
Oh, okay.
Kick back a little.
All right. I just want to remind the board that we're still broadcasting at this time.
Okay, Mr. Sample, we're just about back, but Miss O'Meara, remember, was sharing from her own computer, so I think you need to bring up the next section for us.
That is correct. Let's bring that up again.
So as we're getting the remainder of staff and board back on, we've really got about another minute to go before we said we'd be back. So what we have remaining is Jason, in coordination with Business Services and the HR department, is going to be sharing the salary increase proposal for next school year. And then we're going to go into closed session for matters related to personnel as well as a facility matter. So with that, Jason, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Peterson. Good evening or good afternoon again, board. So myself, as well as our CBO, O'Meara, and Dr. Christine McCormick would like to share with you kind of our salary increase proposal for the upcoming school year. And all three of us will be here to answer questions should you have them as we go through. The first area I just kind of want to take us back to remind, which is kind of, again, our blueprint for excellence, with our goal around this area being that we want to recruit, develop, and retain the highest quality, diverse, and talented faculty, as well as staff. And we definitely feel that the proposal that we are presenting for you today fulfills that goal and hopefully is very supportive of our staff. Today, you'll hear the proposal. Tomorrow, during your regular business, you will, as a board, approve the proposal as well as the salary schedule. I could find my own mouse here. There we go. So from the top, I mean, you can kind of tell those are the days when we could have all of our staff in one place, and we do desire to have those days. But as a staff and as an organization, we do work to continue to look for ways to recruit and retain our quality staff. This proposal does include some findings around the STRS audit finding regarding our TQAI payments, and we'll share with you a mitigation for that as we move forward. We've been very intentional this year to do increased outreach as well as participation in job fairs, community events, online platforms. You'll see our HR department out at a community fair earlier this year, again, looking for ways that we can recruit staff. We have recently started a partnership with our local One Stop to look for ways to recruit classified staff. So we're doing everything we can. We also have started more recently a lot of our partnerships with higher education, in particular Sac State or CSUS, Western Governors University, and William Jessup University, all looking to provide student teachers and again, kind of creating a pipeline for us. So the proposal that we would like to propose to the board would kind of include kind of three main areas. The first would be a 2.5% across all salary schedules, both certificated and classified, increase to the salary schedule. The second would be that mitigation factor that I was sharing with you about the TQAI, that our TQAI teachers only would receive a one-time $2,300 payment that would be dispersed half at the first semester stipend period, and then the second half would be dispersed during the second semester stipend period, which is traditionally at the end of the year. And then recognizing that we continue to deal with the challenges of the pandemic. We continue to deal with the challenges of learning loss. We continue to deal with the challenges that are associated with our staff, having to go above and beyond. We would propose an additional year of the 1.5 one-time kind of pandemic or ESSER funded stipend. This 1.5 would be paid very similar to the TQAI 2,300, which is half of it would be at the first semester stipend period, and the second half would be at the second semester stipend period. And this pandemic kind of stipend would be for all staff, both certificated and classified. Some particular notes about our salary schedule that we want to kind of just draw to your attention, and that is we did expand our salary schedule to year 20. Obviously, we have and we continue to grow, so we previously to this had our salary schedule for the classified stopped at year 15. For certificated year 17, we've expanded that to year 20. And then we eliminated the 3-year band. So within our schedule, we had a number of years where it was like year 10, 11, and 12 before a new kind of bump would happen. So we eliminated the 3 years, and we have moved after year 9 to 2-year bands all the way to the end of our schedule. In our salary review, we did look at how our schedule compared to other charter schools in the area, as well as even some of our local surrounding school districts. And we found that we're very competitive compared to other charter schools. And then within some of our school districts, we found that we were right in the medium range of their salary schedule. So therefore, we really felt that this is a very competitive package for our staff, as well as will help us to retain our quality staff. And so the fiscal impact of the proposal, I'm going to have Omira kind of walk you through our numbers here. And
okay, thank you, Jason. So this is an analysis I did to kind of show the impact that will be seen over all our sites in total. So the salary schedule increase, this is the 2.5% increase and how much that costs. The second step and column, that's just our natural movement of step and column. The current TQAI one-time, so this is how much one-time payment would cost, is $517,000. That's a one-time, so you see it dropping off in year 2 and 3. I also included what we already currently pay for our TQAI stipends, and that's the 482 number, and that you see as a savings in the future years. And then you have the TQAI difference. So what's the difference between your one-time payment and your current year, what we currently already spend. So this is how much it's going to cost us for next year in addition to what we currently pay. These are the benefits associated to the increases. The 277, that's your mandatory STRS, PERS, FICA, Medi, and Medicare, Social Security, et cetera. These are just the natural increases that we're seeing because of STRS and PERS percentage increases. And also we do have a 3% increase that we just naturally add into our health and welfare based on trends. And here is your ESSER one-time payment of $547. Again, this is a one-time, and you see it dropping off in the future years. And then the total compensation, this is the total cost of all plans. And then you see the 1.7. This is just what we are bringing to you as additional components above the mandatories, which is your STRS, PERS, and then the step and column.
Thank you, Elmira.
You're welcome.
And with that, we will entertain questions from the board.
Jack?
Just a quick, well, number one, I strongly support the increase, and I predict that starting in the summer and going into late summer, there is going to be a statewide, on almost all of the educational districts, a massive push for employment of teachers. I think I don't think in my career in California as an educator, I've seen anything like this, where the demand for quality teachers, particularly fully credentialed teachers, has existed. So I support it. How did you come up with the 2.5 and not 3? I only raise this if I'm arguing maybe for a larger increase, because Elmira earlier gave us the inflation figures. And I think you said, Elmira, the inflation was running at 7%.
That is correct. Inflation is going up 7%, but we are only getting 5.33, and we also have the STRS and PERS mandatory benefits that we have to cover, and just natural, step and column. So I think 2.5 was, as much as we could do at this time. Also making sure we can allow some of those sites that have structural deficits to be able to sustain the increases.
And if I could add on that, Jack, we're actually it's actually a 4% with the 1.5 on. So we're doing the 1.5% one time once again. So it is a 4%. And what internally we have discussed is, if in fact the state's economics continue to be positive, which right now the volatility is just hard to predict, there might be the future ability to make that and put that into ongoing after this year. But we kind of need to, as Ms. Elmira said, look at sustainability and be cautious while we watch some of these factors. Okay, and I truly understand the PERS and STRS. When you roll in the entire package, what we're looking at is an increase. A point on the stipends that we're giving, just from a marketing standpoint, we call them stipends, but I notice many businesses now are calling them bonuses and so forth, hiring bonuses and so forth. I just throw that out because, again, it's back to a marketing strategy to be competitive. And I know we will be competitive in this market, but again, I appreciate it. And I think if the governor's present, he's going to give I think it's soon, today or whatever, he's going to talk about the state of the economy in California and be very upbeat. If we were to receive more educational dollars, I'm certainly supportive of going back and revisiting this if we can increase the package. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mark, you had your hand up. I saw Mark's hand. Okay.
I also support it too. And maybe it's semantics, but the 1.5 is really a retention bonus, isn't it? Isn't that the way we're looking at it?
Yes.
I think you need to be careful about how you use any words, because we are needing to follow guidelines that are supported by STRS, PERS, and other entities. And the current way of doing this is a way that follows those things. Jason, I didn't mean to interrupt. What was it you were going to say?
No, thank you, Dr. Pearson. That's exactly what's going to be kind of my point. We've been very careful to name this so that it is STRS, basically STRS and PERS accepts kind of what we've done here, as well as the funds that we're using to pay for this, such as our ESSER dollars, are appropriately. So this has been appropriately named to be able to suffice those dollars.
Bruce, did I see your hand? Okay. And the question was asked and answered with the 1.5, the one time, and just being careful that we don't extend ourselves too much with ongoing. So that's another issue that we really need to look at. Thank you. Any other comments or questions for this item? I don't see any more hands, so I think we're good.
I would just say, I want to be sure that the board is expressing appropriately what we're expressing, which is we really care about our staff. And we really want to provide our staff with the best possible competitive salaries we're able to afford and still have sustainability and longevity. And I know we all speak from that same one voice of wanting to do our very best by our staff.
Okay.
So with that, Madam President and Mr. Sample, I believe we're at the final item. Am I incorrect, Jason? Do we have just closed session left?
Yes, that's our final.
Okay, so we will be moving Mr. Sample and I and the board into closed session, and we'll be recessed for that time, I believe, and then come back.
Then come back.
And then Dr. Peterson and Madam President, for purposes of our public, the board will be in closed session to discuss employee personnel matters pursuant to Government Code 54957, anticipated litigation, employee performance evaluation, and real property negotiations.
Thank you so much for doing the closed session. Thank you. All right. Will we be ready to go?
Okay, Madam President, everyone has returned.
Welcome back from our closed session. And there was no action taken. We just had information only. And at this point, the board will be taking a recess until tomorrow morning at 8:30, when we will come back and continue our board retreat. So with that, I want to thank Cabinet for today, for this afternoon. I want to thank all of the board members for being here and participating in the first part of our retreat. And we will continue tomorrow morning at 8:30 with the remainder of our retreat. So with that, thank Cabinet, board members, and those who were watching and visiting with us virtually. So we'll see